The Glockenspiel, a German word that means bell play, was originally a set of individual bells which required multiple players. But toward the end of the 17th century, those individual bells were replaced by steel bars, played with mallets. And eventually, the modern Glockenspiel became an instrument in its own right. One of the fun facts about percussion instruments in general is that almost any object can become one, much to the annoyance of my family when I was younger. The difference between the Glockenspiel and many of the other percussion instruments is that each of its bars sounds an exact pitch, whereas many percussion instruments just create a sound. Also, depending on the mallets with which it is played, a brighter tone color can be created. Also, if you use softer mallets, you can create a more subdued tone color. The Glockenspiel.
The triangle is a type of musical instrument in the percussion family. It is an instrument of indefinite pitch, for its fundamental pitch is obscured by its non-harmonic overtones. It is a bar of metal, usually steel, but sometimes other metals, bent into a triangle shape. One corner of the triangle is left open to keep the instrument from having specific pitch and to allow it to generate a scandalizing overtone instead. The instrument is usually held by a loop, a form of thread or wire at the top of the curve, and is hit by a wand. The triangle was first used in opera and then widely used in chamber and orchestral music in accompaniment. Shoot. I forgot a part.
I'll fix it. Just continue.
Triangle history traces back to about the 10th century. It was used first in opera and then became widely used in chamber and orchestral music and contemporary music such as folk, Cajun, jazz, and rock. In some places, a larger sized triangle is used to call the cattle or the people in for dinner time, which is called a dinner bell. And it's a huge bell. The end.
The tambourine, it appeared in 1700 BC writings and it's played all over the world. Many ways to hit it. Roll with it, take it. It's very cool. You hear it all over the world. A lot of Latin music. First used in West Africa and Middle East. It's very cool. I like how it sounds. The claves, they originated in Cuba from African slaves that were brought there during the 19th century, and they're played in a lot of Latin and Afro-Cuban music as well. You want to hold it like this. Make sure there's a space in the bottom for sound to seep through. Very cool sound. The wood block is Chinese origin, played in a lot of jazz and orchestra and salsa, and it sounds pretty cool too. I just learned today to play it differently than I have been. You can get different sounds by moving around. The maracas, they were made in Puerto Rico around 500 BC, a lot of Latin and Cuban music as well. Just learned to also play it like this. Hold it. And the generic way to hold it like this. You also get the up stroke, which is very cool to mess around with. The cymbal is from Asia about 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, and it's played everywhere in many different ways around the world. You can play with more than just a mallet. You can play with a drumstick. A lot of rock bands use them. I'm sure you've seen them and played them yourself. Yeah.
And then we're going to go to the cymbals over there. Angie.
Crash cymbals, like the suspended cymbal that was just demonstrated, are thin, round metal plates. Unlike the suspended cymbal, 2 of those plates are used at the same time rather than using mallets.
The snare drum is a very complex instrument used throughout history in all forms of music, including orchestral, symphonic, down to Latin and jazz. It is used everywhere, on the drum set, on the stage, everywhere you can use it. It's played with 2 sticks, usually of wood, of different types, different kinds, to get different sounds. You can do very quiet things, up to the very loud. You can do things like a double stroke that uses 2 strokes on each hand, a single stroke, which is 1 stroke on each hand, or buzz rolls, which are very fast double strokes. On the bottom of the drum, there is metal strings that extend across the drum to give it the snare sound that it has. You can turn those off, and it sounds a lot more like your standard tom-tom. By turning the snares back on and using a special type of stick called the brush, not used to be brushing your hair, can be used in many forms of jazz and other types of music. The snare drum.
The bass drum, or gran casa, is found in most cultures. It has a low, indefinite pitch rather than a tunable pitch like the timpani. It is large and is struck with a beater or mallet, and it has a head on both sides. The bass drum supports the other percussion instruments. You can play single notes or a roll. To stop the sound, you can press your knee or your hand into the head. The bass drum can keep the beat, play rhythms, or perhaps surprise you with a loud accent.
Timpani date back to ancient times. They were small drums attached to the belt of the player. In the Middle Ages in Europe, larger drums were played mounted on horseback and performed with trumpets for ceremonial occasions. In the 1700s, timpani were added to the orchestra by composers such as Bach, Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. Timpani started out as just 2 drums, as you see here, tuned to different pitches. You might have heard the song, "The timpani's 2 tones are always the same tones, 5-1, 1-5, 5-5, 5-5, 1." But many modern compositions require 4 and sometimes more drums to be able to play all of the notes. Today, timpani are tuned by tightening or loosening the head with a pedal, much like the gas pedal of a car. Listen as I change the pitch, up and back down. Sometimes you can have a glissando effect. And with the mallets, you can play single notes like you've heard, or you can roll. Timpani are sometimes called kettle drums, but don't try to cook your favorite stew in them, because there's a hole in the bottom.
conductor in music is a person who conducts an orchestra, chorus, opera company, ballet, or other musical group in the performance and interpretation of ensemble works. At the most fundamental level, a conductor must stress the musical pulse so that all the performers can follow the same metrical rhythm. With that being said, the conductor is responsible for the tempo and is the glue that keeps the ensemble together. Some conductors use a baton to help in the aid of the visual part of conducting, while others use their hands and bodies. The keeping of this rhythmic beat is accomplished by a stylized set of arm and hand movements that outline the basic meter. Example, 2 beats, 1, 2, 1, 2, as in a polka. 3 beats, as in a waltz or a mazurka, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or 4 beats, as in a march, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. In each case, the primary accent is being indicated by a downstroke, the conductor.